have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
Whatever happened to the love between the women and children? Whatever happened to the warriors in our village? Protecting our community, immunity is unity. Feeling like the prophecy, illogically in broken terminology. Determined by irrational decisions is a mockery. Philosophically, metaphysically, killing me. I'm on the edge, about to break down. A nuclear destruction, I'm on a meltdown. I hear the hunger cry of the world. It makes me wonder why the government lies, said they care about the hunger. A million protests that couldn't change your government mind. Forget about their promises, is infected with their lies. But who am I, a foolish guy, when every day another you claims his life by suicide? Feels like we're stuck in the cycle. Media flips it around, makes us look like some psychos.
Thing is that that's where we get our strength, is our land. It's from our land, because we are the land. When this bill, what it does is it's pushing our people to be more impoverished, and because of that, it's forcing our people off to go away from their area, go into the cities, urbanize us, and we abandon the land.
Red, I bleed red, I'm seeing red. I'm praying for my people out there who ain't seen it yet.
My name is Adam Dean. Today we are here to rally against BILL-C27. I have here with me Shannon Houle, Chief Wallace Fox, and Don Murray. And they will be speaking on the issues about the Transparency Act.
You can lock us in jail and throw away the key. Take away my rights, but you ain't stopping me.
To me, what it is another tactic from the federal government of their strong-arm tactics and control, power and control over the indigenous people, and its infringement of our inherent right to govern ourselves. And it's a violation, it's an illegal legislation that was passed by their government and affecting their laws amongst our people also. For example, the Privacy Act, it contravenes a number of sections of their laws, and our people have the inherent right to govern themselves here. Since time immemorial, before the Western civilization, before contact, we never relinquished any of that. It's the systems that were imposed upon us today that have brought us this far, with the dependency syndrome that I call it, system that was created, enacted by the Indian Act. And I've said this over and over again, that no one at the time of treaty told our chiefs, our spiritual leaders, our warriors, that there was a legislation called Indian Act that was going to eradicate and destroy every piece of the treaty promise that was entered into by the Crown and our ancestors.
C27 to me, if I look at it just, on a surface level, what I find is that, it sounds good. But everything that the Harper government pushes through sounds good at the beginning, but it's actually just crap. So when I looked at what the Transparency Act is, on the surface it says, accountability to First Nations about finances and stuff like that. But after watching how things work out, and how things have been working out, especially in the last 2 years, I'm thinking that it's just another stepping stone. It's another stepping stone to the elimination of fiduciary responsibility. And that fiduciary responsibility comes from a nation-to-nation agreement, right? So to me, what I'm seeing happening is not necessarily the lack of transparency from the nations to the members. I think basically how I'm seeing it is that they're trying to pan-Indianize and lump everybody into the same category. They're also trying to get their hands on source revenues that are, some nations have them and some nations don't. But basically what I'm seeing is that they're going to try to lump everything in together, and then through that try to make legislation or try to unilaterally force some type of policy or something that is going to actually be deleterious. It's going to put nations in situations where, because this nation right here is rich, they can afford this and this, but then there's this other nation over here that's going to have to borrow money or sell lands to be able to meet the same needs that this nation is. And because everything is always pan-Indianized, everything's always put within this this box that we're all the same, that it's going to, in the end, actually create bigger problems, because it's not about transparency, it's about accessing the land and the resources and making sure that nations are forced into agreements that that will put those things in jeopardy. So for me, it's a treaty violation. That's how I see it.
Got to run as one now, it's begun. Feel the beat of a different drum.
I'm not going to just answer it in what is C27,
Okay.
because it's not about just what C27 is about. There's a whole connection about it. When I Don't Know More, for instance, happened, C27 is one of the bills that I talked about. And a lot of people said, yes, we're against it. Now, people don't realize C24, C45 is like 400 and some pages, okay? C27 is 5 pages. Lawyers are lawyers who've looked at it. Anybody can read it. It's 5 pages. It's, lawyers have said this is the poorest legislation we've ever seen. Like, really, who wrote this? And what was the whole reason for it? When I look at C27, I don't see it about our salaries at all. As much as they're trying to capitalize on salaries, because that's their divide and conquer tactic. Because of course, everybody, when I look at it at a grassroots level, and I look at our councils, before I was even in council, and it's like, yeah, what are you doing? You know, because we look for leadership. We look, because that's who we are. We've always had our leaders, right? But are we defining our leaders in our own definition, or are we defining and looking at them at what non-Indigenous people have turned us into? They vilified us, made us look like we're not doing what we're doing, because they're defining us on what their definition of leaders are. I do a lot of roles. We do lots of roles. We're not just sitting here pushing paper or doing governance. We're doing a lot of different things. We deal with so much, but we're also dealing, like I seen Chief Wapas in Treaty 4 when we went to his hearing. You know, we don't want to administer our own poverty, and that's what they're capitalizing on, is because technically they're not giving us what they have a responsibility through treaty to give us. What they're expecting us to do is give us rations, and they're giving us scraps, because that's what they're doing. They're taking our Indian trust monies. They're getting most of it. We get maybe 25% of it, and they're giving us the scraps, and they're saying, here's what you got, and make do. It's no different. C27 is like having an Indian Act agent sitting there saying, we dictate to you. when I look at this bill, I think of hold the rations, I think of starvation policy, I think of all these tactics that have been happening over the years. You know, the past system was set up to keep us all in the reserve, to keep us contained within a concentration camp. You know, Hitler used our example to push his agenda. And now what they're doing is they're seeing that we are still strong as people because we're still united, even though they try to divide us into different reservations, but we're still strong and we're still here. When you look at what they've written about us, last week I was reading the Revenue Canada 1864 Indian Act report, and you know, in there they blatantly say, yeah, we had to give them health provisions because they're not extinct, but they are getting disease because they've had contact with the settlers, so they're getting their diseases, and we've had to give them money for health care, which is their responsibility because our ancestors made that agreement, made treaty, negotiated for all of this for us. And because they did that, we are their future that they thought about. And we have to think of the future generations. We have to honor what they did. And what with this bill, what it does is it's a creation to divide us as people, separate us. Because in reality, my heart is always going to be grassroots. Yes, I do have a line of history of leaders in my family. I do come from treaty signer. But that's my role. We all had a role to make our society function. And we all have to unite to create that role, bring that role, our roles together and unite again. But don't allow non-Indigenous people to separate us. Because if you focus on the money thing, which we didn't have before, right? And we focus on who we really are as people, we'll see the real meaning of what this bill does. It's to get our land. It's to move us leaders, their opposition, out of the way so that they can get the land. Turn our reserves into municipalities. Remove us from the reserve. Before they wanted to keep us, but they're seeing that not everyone wants to leave here.
Okay, so I guess what I wanted to ask also is how do we get other people involved in our communities at home? Bringing awareness is one thing, right? But getting people engaged and involved and interactive in what we're trying to do. How are we going to go about that?
Time to take a stand to protect the children, protect the land.
What I keep hearing from elders and a lot of ceremonial is keep educating. But we have to remember the oral understanding. People get confused when you start to look at the written context. We never say we signed treaty, we made treaty. We did, we have to understand that's where the spirit and intent, because the non-Indigenous had the written part, but like what I've been told, it changed even after. There's words in there that were not our understanding. We didn't have that. I heard Wallace say before, this is our mother. How do we break up our mother, or how do we give away part of our mother? Right? And that's, how do we give, the land is us. This is what my grandmother always said. So how do we give part of ourselves like that? How do you take part of that? So we have to remember but what I keep hearing, and also in ceremony, is just we're on the right track. We just have to keep educating and keep enlightening our people and bring them back, because that's what's part of our confusion. We don't know who we are anymore. We have to remember We have to honor what our ancestors did for us. We have to honor that. They went through ceremony for all that they've done for us. They move forward. That's how we are still existing. And we still need to do that ourselves and keep doing that. We have a lot of work, we got a lot of healing, but we're on the right track. We are those generations that they talked about. We just have to keep moving forward.
For me, it's all about spirit, prayer. That's how we continue this. Simple as that. It's about prayer. The old people always told us our lives are not ours, we are lent these lives. We need to acknowledge the Creator as our ancestors have always acknowledged them. Even at the time of treaty. That's why, in my understanding how the old man told me this, Nehiawak. Nehiawak. All the different linguistics groups, Nehiawak. What does that mean? In Cree, Neo. Neo. Put those two words together. Nehiawak. We are made of 4 elements. In the beginning is how Muslim told me. We are made from the earth. Grass grows. We are, anything that's alive on earth needs water to live. So Creator put the water in our systems. We also need the air, oxygen. That's 3 elements. And the last element he took the fire from the sun and he put it in our hearts. That's why our bodies are hot inside. That's why there's water inside. That's why we need oxygen. And we come from the earth. Nehiawak, people of the land. We are the treaty. We are that spirit. As long as the grass grows, as long as there's life in our people, as long as the water flows in our bodies, as long as the sun shines, that's the heart in our people. And that's where all of this originated from that oral understanding of spirit. As long as our people continue to want to learn, and it's a matter of choice, to learn and understand this way. Remember, we've gone over 100 years in this. We are now beginning that journey to recognize and find out who we are as a people. That's why we're stewards of the land. People say, we are the treaty. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. We are. And that's from the spiritual side, Kagi Simone, got a spiritual road of understanding that I was taught about this treaty. That's why it will never go away as long as we are here. And all they've been doing and waiting, our ancestors, is asking them for help. Prayer as a collective. This treaty is collective. It's not me. It's not the 5,000 people in Onion Lake. It's all of us. It's a collective treaty. And the government understands this. They knew that. That's why they created this contract and entered into with the church to create those residential day school systems to take the family dynamics away, and the prayer and the language and the belief. And that's one of the reasons why we are today and where we are in the behaviors of us as a people. And that was an elder told me many years ago. That was instilled the church and the prayer by methods of intimidation and fear. And then it's generational after that. But today we need to recognize that, where we came from and what happened, but not live there. Understand what happened to us as a people and make that conscious choice through the prayer of walking into tomorrow with a better view and a better hope. Thank you.
We need to uncolonize ourselves from Indian Act, is what we need to do. Because we've all been taught generations about Indian Act. We need to uncolonize ourselves. Because back in the day when treaties were made, there was a family or people that were given the right to hold that treaty and remember it through the generations. They had to remember it orally, not because we didn't need to write. We had that. We remembered. We always remembered word for word. But because we did that, and because of, as soon as we signed our, not signed, but made treaty, Indian Act was enforced. So our people got conditioned to that, and they didn't get an opportunity to teach us about treaty. And then the ones who did know kind of had to go in hiding, you know, with all the ceremonies being against the law and stuff. So there's a lot of, we need to uncolonize ourselves. We need to remember.
Indian legislation's on the desk of a do-right congressman. Now he don't know much about the issue, so he picks up the phone and he asks advice of the senator out in Indian country, a darling of the energy companies who are ripping off what's left of the reservations. I learned a safety rule. I don't know who to thank. Don't stand between the reservation and the corporate
uncivilized and lawless
bank.
people,
They'll send
and we
in
never
federal tanks.